Welcome to NECA Voice of Business, a radio program aired by the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association aimed at raising awareness and discussing contemporary issues that relate to doing business in Nigeria, enterprise development, and business sustainability. We will look at evolving topical government policies and the relevant institutions. At NECA Voice of Business, discussions will center around matters of concern to businesses which could either cut across all the sectors of the Nigerian economy or sector-specific. Guests on the program will include subject matter experts who are prominent, respected, and experienced in their respective fields of work and operations. Audience are encouraged to call in live on the program to pose questions to our panel of experts, make comments or recommendations on issues tabled for discussion. NECA Voice of Business is also available on our dedicated YouTube channel. Our audio streaming platform links are Mixlr, NECA Voice of Business, Waystream, NECA Voice of Business. NECA, the voice of business since 1957, bringing you business information.
When you think of fruit juice and all the goodness that comes in it, think Chivita. It is many years of trust, quality, and all the goodness of fruit poured into one lovely pack with no artificial flavors, colors, and preservatives, specially made for you. And there is more to choose from. Whatever your preferences are, there is a Chivita for you. If you love an active life, there's Chivita Active. Or you can just relax and unwind with Chi Exotic. If you are the cool dude, say hello to Happy Hour. And if you are the explorer who simply wants to try something refreshingly different, Chivita Iced Tea is your drink. However you want it, there is a Chivita for you. There is a Chivita for everyone. So, what's your Chivita?
Good morning, distinguished viewers from whichever part of the globe you are watching from or connecting with us at this NECA session on engaging businesses, engaging the public and government. My name is Thompson Akpabio. I work for NECA. Currently, I'm a director and head of department on legal, regulatory, and taxation. And one of the areas which we'll be focusing today is to look at the physical environment, physical policy and taxation environment, and also setting an agenda which we believe will aid the incoming administration in the Federal Republic of Nigeria to understand the pains and concerns of businesses from across the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory in Nigeria. Let me remind you once again that NECA is the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, a business membership organization, an arm of the Organized Private Sector of Nigeria, OPSN, and we are primarily there to protect the interests of our members in this climb through all legal and legitimate means. This include advocacy. This also include public enlightenment, taxation issues, and several. And to discuss this very important topic with us, we have two distinguished gentlemen with us here at the studio, and I just want to introduce them. First, I want to thank you so very much for joining us to be here to discuss the issue of taxation, to discuss the issue of fiscal policies and concerns of the business forum on the business environment with government. And we have him here with us. I just want to call him, he happens to be the head of banking and treasury, and he works for Chi Limited, makers of Chivita, Happy Hours, and several other products. We have Mr. Chiedu, very much welcome with us. Prior to joining Chivita, he had worked in several places. He has well over 10 years experience in the banking industry, where he worked through various areas and various job functions in the banking industry. He has a degree in economics from one of the prestigious universities. He holds an MBA also, and is currently working on his doctorate. He's a doctorate student at the Lagos Business School. where hopefully he'll be coming up with his Doctor of Business Administration. He believes in a whole lot of things, which includes strategy, combining flawless execution in critical and to achieve organizational effectiveness and national goals. We'd like to welcome you so very much into our midst.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Mr. Charles Mba. Mr. Charles Mba also works for the same organization. He is the head finance and accounts with well over 12 years experience as a professional and is indeed the accounting industry. He had also had a stint with one of the foremost accounting professional servicing group. I'm talking about the KPMG of this world. And he also comes here to share with us his several years of experience both in taxes, in accounting, in leadership, and across the spectrum of the Nigerian market. Mr. Mba, so very much nice to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Viewers, as we said earlier, we'll be looking at the fiscal and monetary policy, the economy, and looking at what should the next administration be considering. The new administration coming up next month from May, what should they be looking at? But before we look into that, I'd like to ask Mr. Mba, in a broader sense, what's your perspective, the economic future that you anticipate for our nation, Nigeria?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Thompson, and thank you to the viewers as well. I think Nigeria still has a very great future. The business environment is ideally remains a robust one, despite the challenges that we witness in the environment in doing businesses. However, I also believe that given the robust nature of Nigerian economy, given the persistence and then also the market base that we have in Nigerian system, that the economy will also have a good view, especially if we have a good supporting structure, supporting regulations and policies from the federal government and even the state as well. There are a lot of people who are interested in playing in Nigerian market, both local and foreign investors. So I believe that the future is still very good, despite the challenges. And with good policy and with good drive from especially the incoming government, we expect that will take a very good growth further. We already recovered from the recession, and I think we can take it further to a better numbers in the nearest future.
You know, talking about the nearest future, how will you describe the current state of businesses in Nigeria, taking into considerations issues of regulations, taxations, and other factors?
I would say current situation is also a bit tough. You know, there's a lot of concerns from the players in the industry that we have a lot of challenges that we believe could have been easier to aid businesses to operate well in the system. You know, regulatory-wise, we're beginning to have a lot of heavy regulations coming from the government on so many areas. A lot of people have been crying over the issue of multiple taxations spilling over everywhere, where you have to consider different levels of taxes at different points of businesses. You know, so it begins to make doing businesses a little bit tough, right? So, and the environment, while the players are very, very robust and very open to keep struggling and making headway, we think there should be far better way to make things seamless. The regulations in the system, even the regulators in applying some of these regulations, are a bit getting overboard. You know, the auditors that come around for a lot of business audits continues to make life a bit tougher for the guys who operate. And we believe that if the incoming administration focuses on making it a little bit more seamless, businesses will function far better. We need to do more in making ease of business, promoting interest rates, and promoting a very unified exchange rates within the system. These are the different tough environment that we play in, and I think if we look at it very well, we should have a good administration if they give us the best of regulation in this regard.
Thank you. You want to add something to that?
Yes, I want to also add to what Mr. Amba said as well. Looking at the challenges today that businesses are facing in Nigeria, and if you look at how are we going to work around this issue of first scarcity, a very, very serious challenge that have faced this economy as regards the logistic business as well. It's like around the issues of forest scarcity and how businesses try to maneuver around issues of forest scarcity and how to endanger and grow their businesses. It's also a very, very serious challenging issue that the government is also, that Nigerian businesses are also facing. Looking at access to credit as well, credit facilities, access to credit and high interest rate is a very, very serious challenge facing a lot of SMEs that operate in this environment as well, and it's all affecting organized businesses and how they make progress and advance. So we expect the incoming administration to take a typical look, a proper look into these challenges and see how to address them, how to come together with other partners in addressing some of all these issues.
You make mention of the incoming administration, and we are hoping we are all hoping as Nigerians that by next month, May 2023, we'll have a new government, and they are expected to be in power for 4 years. Now, what would be an agenda for them? What would be, in your own view, an agenda? What kind of agenda should businesses be setting for them? Economy agenda, tax agenda, fiscal policy? What agenda?
Yes, in the course of the campaign, the political parties, including the president-elect we currently have, they were very big on talking about a lot of growth, a lot of driving growth. This current president-elect was also very, very clear about capitalist system, private sector-led businesses, and we can also recall that he was once a governor in Lagos State as well. The drives we can also see, but the major challenge that we also expect the incoming administration to deal with has to do with the issue of security. Security is a very significant issue that, if not dealt with, it will be difficult for us to attract the required investment, foreign and local investment in a lot of areas. A lot of businesses in certain areas are almost dead. If you look at it, insecurity issues in the southeast, for instance, have crippled the economy, thereby leading to huge urban migration that we can see in some of the city centers. So insecurity is a very, very serious issue. Issue on the first subsidy issue is also an issue that has to be dealt with. For us to increase our revenue, for us to drive our revenue growth as a country, definitely that issue must be dealt with. However, in the course of dealing with the issue of forced subsidy, every party responsible from the labor union, everybody must come to the same table to have an agreement on the way to go. I believe it's an issue that we need to deal with. Another very serious issue is revenue issues as it concerns oil, increasing our output in terms of oil production. This has to also do with dealing with the issue of oil theft in the Niger Delta and how to ramp up a lot of production in that space as well. I believe with this, with the incoming government, we have a significant part to play in taking it up from there.
I kind of like the perspective which you make mention of all players, stakeholders being carried along, the organized private sector and the labor unions, the various agencies of government that are involved in driving the economy to ensure that the economy bounces back, the economy is being reshaped. But one of the things that we have actually raised concern as organized private sector, as NECA to be precise, is the issue of synergy. Synergy in terms of the fiscal and monetary authorities, fiscal and monetary policies of government. I'd like to hear your take on this, sir.
Yes, thank you very much. This is a very significant area, you know. In recent past, we had situations where the CBN comes to pronounce policy changes, especially with regards to the cash, the change in our currency. And then the finance minister comes up to say, oh, I don't know about it. You know, this is one of the areas where you can see a divergent opinions on very critical matters like the currency change, the designation of the currency. And of course, it resulted in a lot of shambolic implementation that affected businesses so strongly. So yes, one of the key areas they must ensure is that there has to be a sync between the monetary policies of the government and the fiscal policy drive, such that we can see that where the government is going is being supported by the monetary policy that is driving it. And in formulating some of these policies, it's very important that stakeholders and all the players are also brought on board. I know there are several issues where people like NECA also goes to, negotiate and deliberate with government with regards to some of these areas as they affect the business players. So it will be very okay if we see the new government show us that synergy, that from the fiscal policy, this is the direction we're going, and the monetary policy aiding it, and then the actual players within the environment being carried along, such that when those policies come out, you begin to see all parties working toward the same goal. Because at the end of it all, we are all working towards the same goal. We're all working to have a very robust economy, which will favor both the private and the public sector. So if you have a very good cohesion and synergy at this point, we will definitely see an economy and a policy that comes and is implemented with all carried along and to a success position.
Now, do I take it that you are telling us that the fiscal policies of government can help to address certain issues in the economy? He make mention of insecurity. What about things like poverty, inequality, jobs, and all?
You are very right. The fiscal policies of the government actually sets the tone for which the whole economy is laid on. For instance, you have the tax valuations and the tax regulations. Some of these are business, and some of these helps the small and medium scale businesses to operate well. If you have very good fiscal policy that promotes small business enterprises operations, you will see a robust economy, because the businesses or the economy is actually driven by these private sectors more. So if you have a fiscal policy that encourages businesses to operate and operate in a saner environment where you have security concerns addressed, where you have issues of exchange, multiple exchange rates addressed, the businesses will thrive. And when the businesses thrive, employment is actually taken care of. And like they say, an idle man is a devil's workshop. If most of our youths are engaged, if most of our youths are usefully engaged, they will have less time for crime. They will have less time to cause insecure issues that we'll have in the nation. So the fiscal policy of the government is very pivotal in setting the tone for which a robust business experience will go on, and even the entire issues that we have in the economy will almost be fit into it. So we expect that fiscal policy to support where we're going as a nation.
Yeah.
Mr. Chedo, in looking at your profile, I see you had experience in the banking industry. You having experience in the food and beverage industry. And if you look at tax regime versus the fiscal policies of government, and you now look at what's happening in other clients, other regions of the world, what would be your advice to the incoming administration for our nation, Nigeria?
Yes, I think looking at the tax regime and some of the challenges we face in this space, in this economy, very clearly you could see that they have a lot of multiple taxation issues, which a lot of organizations, including our organization, is also dealing with. So a lot of businesses, there was an ease of doing business issues came up, and trying to simplify the taxation process across Nigeria. If you look at it as well, you realize that a lot of unstructured tax processes as regards to the informal tax system, whereby a lot of people collect taxes and we don't actually have a proper aligning or reporting process for some of these taxes. So if you look at what we're trying to do from here and look at what the other developing nations are doing, we look at it that we need to bring in a better harmonized taxation system, whereby tax authorities are seen as partners, where tax authorities view the customers, view every other taxpayer, view them as partners in trying to enhance revenue generation for the economy, and trying to see how that can also help us drive further what we're trying to cover up the deficit budget. If I also look at it around the area, the first conversation we're having earlier around the fiscal policies on areas of inequality, poverty, and education as well. If you also look at it, the fiscal authorities have a lot. I'm just trying to go towards the earlier question you asked. Fiscal authorities have a lot to do in trying to improve that process, in trying to grant some level of tax incentives to corporates that are willing to invest in education, in healthcare, in certain areas that are not well does not have enough facility. So we're trying to see how in-tax incentives can go into those in rural areas or the less privileged communities as well. Trying to see how they can encourage the private sector to invest or form public-private partnership arrangements that can help that further as well. So looking at government setting up primary care health centers across the entire chain, trying to reach every member, and also encouraging people to go to school. Right? They came up with this outgoing administration introduced school feeding program. I think if we're structured and better structured, that can go a long way in encouraging people to also go to schools and get really educated. Thank you.
Now, you are talking about some of these businesses not being well funded. Now, NECA is not limited to any particular size of business. We look at multinationals. Our members cut across all sectors of the economy. Our members cut across various facets, whether it's the oil and gas, banking, finance, textile, food and beverage, retail, all sectors. And also cut across all sizes of business. It could be the multinationals, the big, medium, large, and the SME. I want to talk about the issue of access to credit. Access to credit. I'm picking you up because I know you have a banking experience. How do you suggest to government in terms of improving access to credit? Because businesses do need the credit. So what will be your take on this?
Yes, my take on that is very clear that businesses need a lot of credit to support their businesses. I'm looking at government putting up frameworks and regulatory authorities and how to support the framework to support lending to various both large and small, medium and small enterprises as well. Looking at government doing this through various intervention funds, working with various government agencies such as development banks, such as NESA, such as Infrastructure Bank, BOI, come up with intervention funds that can support the various requirements of these businesses and help or aid funding to these businesses so that they can have expansions and grow. Most especially, we're looking at on the agri-value chain. Government have actually done some in terms of with NESA, with CBN intervention funds, single-digit lending as well to certain category of industry and clients as well. So we just want the government to continue to encourage or work out policies that will make these funds go a little bit further to supporting both the large and the small medium-scale enterprises in Nigeria.
Thank you. I kind of like the way you said it. You want government to do more and to do more. Do you agree with him, sir?
Definitely. The banking system and the general credit, access to credit system in Nigeria, yes, needs to be a little bit more enhanced. Okay. Yes. I saw that the government is also trying to make efforts in with the new easy access to business law that they just reviewed the last time, where they're trying to reduce the interest rates for the National Housing Fund for the mortgage loans from 4% to 2%. I can see, yes, they're trying to make effort to encourage the real estate space to have access to credit. However, apart from just the interest rate alone, the real process of gaining and assessing these loans is a big challenge. For instance, the contributions that people make on national housing funds, for instance, for them to be able to access loans for ownership of homes, and they find it difficult to access this. That's the general knowledge. Maybe the mortgage bank system needs to do more in terms of either easing up the actual process or informing people and enlightening them on how easy it is to access this. Because these are all the different ways where we can make access to credit available to the guys, this time around, the guys in the real estate space. And this affects even other small businesses that we have. The multinationals are not finding it easy because also the cost of this finance is actually very huge, you know. So, and the government needs to enhance these ways through their monetary policies and through the CBNs to ensure we have access to this loan, because the availability of these loans ensures production continues in Nigeria in a more robust way, and of course creates a robust system for an improved growth in the economy.
Now, we're talking about growth in the economy. I'm aware that government has set up what they call the ease of doing business. Yeah. I'm also aware that there have been several laws, regulations like the Business Facilitation Act that has actually been signed into law to aid the doing of the ease of doing business in Nigeria. In your own view, are there areas for improvement, or will you be asking that government should open the borders for more foreign investment? And how would that affect the local businesses in Nigeria? Those are actually two questions in one. The first one, how would you suggest, or are you satisfied with the current state of the ease of doing business initiative of the government?
Well, I would say there is still big room for improvement.
Okay.
While I appreciate the effort the government is trying to make to ease this process of business registration, business dealings, and the business reporting and the rest of them, while I appreciate that, I think there are still very huge rooms for improvement. For instance, the issues around filing of your returns as a business is a heavy task for some of us, the accountants, where you have to file your return as a business, where you have to file your tax returns. Sometimes you have significant challenges going through the process. I give you an instance. If you have utilized your input VAT, for instance, and you need to use it, you have a 5 million worth of input VAT for which you're going to use to utilize in your tax liability. You find out that within the system, you might check the government system, especially like the FIRS portal, you see just a 2 million input VAT, right? When you have a 5 million, what you have to do, they have to compel you to pay for the remaining to the balance, even when you have already utilized that. So you find out that while the government is making the efforts, the process is not allowing you to enjoy it, and the business gets frustrated over that. So you put up the papers for ease of doing businesses. When the rate process starts, it becomes even more difficult to implement. So at the end, the government did not achieve its objectives, and the businesses are also not excited about it. So I think there's going to be a big room for improvement in that regards.
Before we round up, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, joining us from whichever part of the globe, there's this concern which we want to discuss, and that is tax regime. We've had complaints or issues that government seems to be taxing the same set of people that are complying. What do you take in terms of tax evasion? Are there people, what steps should government be taking?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think, yes, government has a need to ensure it increases its tax net so that it can bring in a lot, because we have a lot of informal taxes flying around the nation. However, some of us actually feel that there are a lot of multiple taxes flying, both the formal sector and the informal sector. So while you want to expand the net, the problem now is that a lot of the informal taxes don't get accounted for the government, because the initial plan for the government is to generate revenue through these taxes. But when these taxes are not well accounted for, because they are all spread in a lot of informal settings, the actual collection processes, a lot of these revenues don't end up sitting in government coffers. The government still suffers with lack of revenue, and as a result of that, a lot of other things like deficit budget and all that springs up. So the government need to put up a lot of structure to bring in these informal taxes into a structured mode of formal taxes, so that they can account for their revenue in real sense, and then help the businesses have a formal view of which taxes they are to pay, and make it easier to be able to make those payments, so that in all revenue, the government gets its objective of gaining revenue from the taxpayers also have ease in paying and processing this tax. It helps to even deal with the issue of tax evasion in its real sense.
Let me take you up there now. Could the current structure which you've described, would that be capable of sending away foreign direct investment or investors into the country? Or how can government improve on getting more investments?
Yeah, sure. I think if we are talking about how to improve and get more foreign investors, I think one of the major areas that our foreign investors may be having at this point, or is having, is this issue of multiple exchange rates, where you have varying multiple exchange rates.
Okay.
If the government can take actions and initiative to ensure we harmonize our exchange rate regime, people from the foreign spaces can know exactly what the value of the capital they're investing into the business would be. Otherwise, you can make an assessment of your investment, and before you know, the different exchange rate will erode the base. So one of the key areas to encourage these foreign investors is to also make adequate policy and take adequate action to harmonize our exchange rate. This multiple exchange rate is doing more harm to the economy than we should have. So I think, and my expectation is that the incoming administration should help in harmonizing this way, so that we can be able to have a straightforward base of what our rates are, what our business transaction bases are, and what investments we are going into with the expectation of what earnings or returns we hope to get from it.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I started this conversation with you. Let me actually end the conversation with you. So how can good businesses take advantage of the fiscal policies of government and other programs of government to ensure growth, development, and more productivity?
Yes, businesses, as you can see in Nigeria, are always very open to support government policies. We just require the government to set the terms so that businesses can follow. It's very, very important as well. Businesses work closely with government regulators as well, because regulators in this case should work with the businesses, while businesses work with regulators towards achieving the goals. We obviously know that the goal in this country or in these countries for us to achieve that common, reduce unemployment, solve poverty issues, increase our revenue, drive growth, and as far as we want to drive this growth at these various points, it's very, very important businesses are ready. Businesses are ready to help achieve that. So we as businesses, as businesses, multinationals and large corporates, organized businesses in Nigeria, we look at the policy direction of government, why we are very, very interested and excited as well to run along with the government, to support and work with the government to ensure the developmental goals of the economy is achieved.
Well, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, you heard from our two very important guests with us this morning. We thank you so very much for sharing your thoughts with us. We thank you so very much, Mr. Chinedu, Mr. Mba. We appreciate it so very much. Before we round up, we just want to make these points clear. Here at NECA, we believe we are not against regulations or regulatory activities of government. However, we will appreciate if those activities are known within the ambit of the law. And a while ago, one of our discussions in the studio here make mention of multiple taxation, another make mention of informal taxations flying around. It would be nice that all of those things are being harmonized by the various agencies of government. For instance, the JTB, the Federal Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning, and taking into consideration various players in the industry. NECA is very much willing, ready and available to also sit on the table to discuss ways and means to which all of these issues on taxation, fiscal policy can be done and addressed to ensure that businesses remain. It's important for us to know that once a business closes down, several families are affected. For instance, if the business thrives, you'll be able to ensure that taxes are being paid through either the payee means or company income tax or any other form of tax that is applicable. And then those families that have their dependents that either two had worked in those companies will no longer be able to have funding for either housekeeping and other bills that are being paid. So we are beginning to drive this down to the grassroots. As it affects business, it's going to affect the individuals, affect the families, affect their families, affect even up to their education, affect rent, and then after it will affect the country as a whole. If the business dies, that taxes or those taxes from that particular company will no longer be obtained or received by any agency of government. And if a business dies, all those dependents, the workers and the dependents from those places that they have worked will no longer be taken care of. So we will be urging government to take all this into consideration in addressing the need of businesses to ensure that businesses thrive. I will call on the incoming administration to work along with all stakeholders, including NECA, to ensure that Nigerian businesses are kept on going, keep on going and thriving. On that note, we want to thank you so very much for your time with us, and we wish you all a good day. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
It's gotta be good, it's gotta be wholesome, truly tasty, worth sharing, nourishment to my body. My Hollandia yogurt, nourishing goodness for every moment, making my day delightful. Oh, my Hollandia yogurt, my Hollandia yogurt, yeah.
Hollandia yogurt, wholesome nourishment from your favorite brand.